Welcome to Bigger Than You, the podcast to help you go from overwhelm, self-doubt and scarcity in your business to the calm, grounded and unshakably confident version of you that's going to bring your vision to life. You've got a mission and a purpose that's bigger than you and your limiting stories and beliefs. So let's get you out of your own way. I'm Jenna Holloway, your host and multi-award-winning intuitive hypnotherapist and mindset coach. Expect to hear game-changing perspective shifts on how to align your subconscious mind with your boldest goals, and will unlock the power of energetics, infusing it into every aspect of your life and business for maximum impact. Are you ready? Then let's dive in. Hello, thank you so much for joining me again. I'm really excited. It's been a while since we had a guest on the show, and I'm really excited to have this lovely guest, Anna Rumbold. Anna and I had a conversation recently. I was on her podcast, and yeah, really excited to get her on here. Anna is an award-winning business and marketing mentor who helps coaches, consultants, and service providers to create their 10K per month foundations through their marketing that attracts high-ticket clients who will thrive with them and stay with them. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, really enjoyed the conversation we had a few weeks ago. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Amazing. Can I ask you, first of all, how did you get into choosing that person to work with?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so it's interesting actually, because I do totally understand that you can't necessarily just say one day, I'm going to start a business, I'm only going to work with my dream client, this is the way it's going to be, I'm going to say no to anybody who isn't a right fit, because I actually do believe that initially, probably most of us said yes to anybody who inquired, or mostly, I would say. So I would say that it didn't always start like that. And I do think part of that is that you don't necessarily know who it is that you want to work with and who is most likely to thrive with you until you actually get a little bit of evidence. So I will say that in my journey, I'm now 4 years into running my business. At the beginning, I was that person. I actually started out as a social media manager, and I was saying yes, no matter what the industry, who it was, where they were. It was just, yes, I will help you. And, I worked hard with all of those people. We created results, but then it started to show me the types of people that I actually wanted to work with. And I quite quickly pivoted to mentoring. But even with the mentoring, initially it was during the pandemic, and I was helping anybody who essentially was kind of panicking because they had to take their bricks and mortar store online and they didn't know how to optimize that. So initially I was helping lots of small bricks and mortar businesses, really enjoyed working with those people. But then I started to follow my own passions, and that led me to realizing the types of clients that I could help the most, because it was my zone of genius, the area that I'd really realized that I was good at. But also I started to see the commonalities between the types of people who were creating the best results. And then for me, it was a bit of a no-brainer really, that, okay, this makes sense to actually actively go out and speak directly to those people, because I know that they're going to create the best results. And that's the kind of business that I want to run.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes that deciding. Well, first of all, like picking up on what you said about you've got to experience what you don't like to realize what you don't like, right? So it's natural to have that period in your business where you're like, yes, 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 I'll work with anyone. And then you notice how it makes you feel. And then you get to choose what you want. And that's literally where it comes from, isn't it? It's that internal decision. This is what I want. And without making that internal decision, you don't get to create the external reality that you want, because you're available for anything, right? It really is about that that inner sort of piece of, yeah, I can see what I want. I know how I want to feel in my business. And so I'm going to go out and I'm going to make that happen. And absolutely, it makes total business sense to be drawn to working with the people that get the best results for you, because then obviously you've got momentum there in terms of your reputation and you being the standout person and everything. So yeah, I love what you said there. Okay, so we decided before we hit record, we decided we wanted to talk about attraction marketing and how we get to a place with our messaging where we speak only to our dream clients, because this is such a skill, isn't it? Our words have a frequency. And if we are not aware of if we're not aware of how to do it well, it's a bit like throwing spaghetti at the wall and your message is resonating with somebody. But we have to be really, really conscious and practice that skill so that we consciously create and like curate the message that lands and resonates with your dream client only. So I love that we're going to talk about this, and I love that you're going to share like your wisdom and advice so that we can move our listeners on, and me too. Like, I'm here for all of this, so share us your gold, Anna.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited. And actually, I'm really glad that you just led with that, because that's the exact place that I would start with. It's interesting. A lot of people, a lot of my clients come to me and say, I want to learn how to create content. I want to attract my clients through content. Of course, that is the goal. But oftentimes I actually say, we've got to take a step back. It's not actually the content that we want to be looking at right now. That's the last piece of the puzzle, because what we need to do is craft a message that actually mirrors what I sometimes call like your internal message, who you are, what you're about, why your ideal client should hire you. So we'll actually take those steps back, and it actually starts with a lot of clarity and a lot of leadership. And what we were just saying as well about it making business sense. I think this bit can be a tough one to kind of accept, and I totally feel it myself. But when we are like you and I are, we're personal brands, there's a lot of personal identity that's thrown in there. And I am quite passionate actually about distinguishing between personal identity and personal brand. But when we are working with people in this way, it naturally leads us to want to be really inclusive and really accessible. And I really understand that. Of course, we want to be seen as accessible and inclusive, but actually, in the business world, that isn't how things work. In huge corporations, they market towards segments. They do say, okay, this is who I'm for, and this is who we want to go out and actively attract. And that actually, I think, is the first step in actually kind of accepting that we don't have to be for everybody, and we're actually doing them a service by showing them that we're not necessarily for them. Because if those people aren't in the best position to, create results with us, or whatever it is that we offer, they don't align with us, then we are actually doing that. I really believe that we are doing them a service by saying, actually, I'm not for you. But it takes a lot of mental resilience, I think, a lot of mindset work to be able to say, okay, my content has the potential to trigger a certain person, or it has the potential to put somebody off. That person might unsubscribe, they might unfollow, they might even leave a comment saying, what are you talking about? This isn't relevant to me. And when we put the business hat on, I think it's really important to be okay with that. So I think as a first point, I think it is really important to go back to that place where we actually recognize that we get to decide where we want to sit in the market. It is business, it is marketing. We don't have to just be accessible to absolutely everyone. But then from there, I think it is really important to, if we are, let's say, established in business, even a year or so, to look back at that evidence of who we do really enjoy working with, who is creating the results with us. And the first thing that I would suggest doing, going back to my earlier point, actually recognizing why your clients already hire you. That's the really cool thing about messaging. I know I sound a bit geeky saying that, but the reason your clients hire you already exists.
Mm.
And what we're really doing with messaging is elevating that reason. It's not about like sounding the best. It's not using, getting the thesaurus out and finding the fluffiest, flashiest words to use in our content. It's not about piling everything high with scarcity and fear-based tactics. It's about actually elevating the reasons that our clients come to us to start with. The more clear we are around that, around why these dream clients are already hiring us, and the more we elevate that in our messaging, we will naturally attract those kind of people, especially when we can, of course, mirror what they're saying. So something I actually really recommend my clients doing is actually going back over testimonials and actually really highlighting the commonalities, highlighting what underpins their results, like what it is that actually got them to that place. But then from the other side of things, I also really recommend looking at what they bring to the table. And what I mean by that is how they show up, what traits they possess, whether they already want the transformation that you deliver. If you're speaking to the person who doesn't believe that the transformation you're delivering isn't possible for them, it's going to feel like you're convincing. Everything will
Yeah.
feel like constant convincing. So if you can recognize how this client behaves, the one who actually wants the transformation, and you can speak directly to that person, you will find it a whole lot easier to attract them.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I just want to give a reframe back to, the thing that you were saying about when you choose to, like it makes business sense to market to one segment of, the population. And that obviously means kind of a little bit turning your back on everybody else. And that's okay. That makes business sense. The reframe for that is that the ones who are right for you, your dream clients that have the potential to be ready to work with you one day, you will not switch them off. They will be activated by your content and they will be on your vision board. And so that, for example, me, I work with business owners who have worked on their messaging and they've created their success and they now feel like they've hit a plateau. So I don't work with new business owners, but I have a lot of new business owners watching and really just like, one day I know I'm going to work with Jenna kind of thing. And I'm not switching them off, but I'm not talking to them. They get to choose, they get to make that decision whether they follow and they listen. And some of them join my membership, because they get that support in a very low cost way. But it's still me. I've made that decision. And so you will not turn off the people that eventually will be right for you, just not right for you right now. So it's like, yeah, it's exactly what we say. Recognize where you're going to be most powerful, and also where you're going to get the most joy, right? Because why are we doing this? Right? We're doing this for joy and for the feeling that we're going to get when we hit our goals. And that's not about the wealth. It's about the feeling that you're going to get when you have that freedom. So well, I don't know what the saying is, but like tune in and like zone in on that right now with your decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting as well, actually, because now that I've been in business, a few years, not as long as what you have, but I definitely see as well that when I work with the kind of clients who, show up a certain way, they want to create that transformation, it also means that I get to work like in my zone of genius rather than perhaps feeling like I'm sort of stuck in surface level problems, it might be. So, and that in itself is such a huge part of what brings me joy in my business, and I'm sure a lot of other people as well. So I think even speaking to the right person means that you can actually get into where you thrive.
Yeah, and it becomes so exciting to work because it just doesn't feel like work, does it? It feels like, and also what I love to share about like messaging as well. When you are speaking to your dream client and your dream client shows up, it doesn't feel like you need to be anything other than yourself because they've recognized in you that you're the one for them. And so because, well, this is more about authenticity, but like I really believe in that too. So when we are showing up in our own power with our strong message and we're not watering ourselves down because we don't believe that we'll be accepted if we show up exactly as we are, when we do that and we get our dream clients back, it just feels so like freeing because they've come to you because they've seen you exactly as you are. So of course you're going to carry on being exactly who you are. And it's just the most amazing feeling to be able to be yourself, right? That's what we all want.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that really goes hand in hand, I feel, with what I was saying earlier around, messaging isn't about, getting the thesaurus out and choosing the fluffiest words and trying to say things that you think people want to hear and, how they should perceive you. It's actually,
Mm,
I really believe that if you bring out that inward message and show them, why other clients are hiring you, and also if you are attracting clients who are a dream to work with and who have a tendency to go on and create results, then you're going to be able to communicate with so much more conviction. And that
yeah.
conviction is going to come from a place of inner truth, as opposed
Mm,
to, again, if we create offers, if we create messaging just by looking at sort of what everybody else is doing, then sometimes that clarity piece just is missing, and that conviction, because we can't lead it back to a route. This is why
Yeah.
I'm saying this thing, or this is why
Yeah.
I've just launched this offer.
Yeah, absolutely. When we're looking outside of ourselves and doing what we think is going to work or saying what we think needs to be said, that's an action taken from a place of lack because we don't feel that we've got what we need from within. And so, exactly right. Anything that we're doing that's coming from a place of lack is going to get lack back. You can't be in lack and in alignment at the same time. So we really need to look inwards, and find what that truth is and be confident and brave to share that. And it's so, so powerful when you do, because our brains are, our subconscious is the one that is making most of the decisions for us. And so we're reading people's non-verbal communication, we're picking up on energy, right? And none of this is conscious. So when you are listening to people or reading people's content, you feel the energy of it. Even if you don't realize you do, you're doing it subconsciously. And when you're showing up, and putting out offers that you think are going to be needed, and rather than really trusting yourself to know, then it's going to fall flat because you do not have that aligned energy behind it. So yeah, just like kind of confirming exactly what you're saying from an energy perspective. We all feel energy, even if we don't know we do. It's the subconscious making all these decisions for us. So Anna, how do we go about, or what do you say to your, actually no, let me ask you, what do your clients struggle with the most?
Yeah, it's a good question actually, because it relates to what you've just been talking about in relation to, having that trust in your inner truth, and actually you're putting content out in the world from that place of knowing. And interestingly, all the clients that I work with, even if they are a couple of years into their businesses, they're doing well, they are signing clients. They know that they really help people. They see their clients are getting really good results. They really care about their delivery. But because they're so in it, it's actually really quite difficult to take that step back and actually understand why their clients are actually hiring them. And I know that sounds like quite a simple thing. Well, of course, my clients are hiring me for mindset coaching. My clients are hiring me for messaging coaching, but actually it goes deeper than that, because they're hiring us for specific reasons that aren't just around, okay, this person helps with this one thing, because there are hundreds of people doing the same thing. And although I totally believe in the whole idea of people buy from people, and I do think that that is super important, but again, I don't think a lot of people recognize what it is about them that people are actually buying into. And again, it's not just personality either. Otherwise, you'd just be friends.
Yeah.
If you were showing up and showing this really nice side of yourself, and somebody was reading your content, they're probably going to want to be a friend. They'll be reaching out. It takes another layer for them to see, I want to hire this person. And I actually think a lot of people struggle to really understand what that is, and therefore they find it difficult to mirror that back in their marketing. So a lot of the work that I do with clients, so many questions, we actually reverse engineer the outcome that they help their clients to create, to actually figure out that exact process. How do they get from A to B, but not just the kind of surface level? Well, when they arrive, they feel like this, and then afterwards they leave feeling like this. We really strip it back to exactly how that result is created, even if it of course differs. People go through different ways of getting, there's more than one way to get to Rome, whatever the phrase is. But we will still look at the transformation that they know they can deliver and really strip that back. And then, as I say, we actually look at the reasons why their clients hire them to do that. So it will be things like, again, I think why it's difficult is we are in this every day. All of our experience, all the tools that we have, all of the qualifications that we might have, it's really hard to separate yourself from that person and actually see why those things help you to be who you are. And that sounds like a really strange thing to say, but I really do believe that that's one of the biggest struggles, because we are that person. We can't really detach from the person who doesn't have the knowledge, the skills, and the qualifications. So it's actually showing them, okay, why does that 10 years experience mean that you're going to create that result with me? You know, why
Mm.
does that qualification, why do your past client results, why did those things mean that I'm going to get that result with you? So it's actually really doing a lot of that stripping back and then understanding to then actually communicate that in our messaging.
Yeah, that is so, so important because you want to, like, so we're talking about not convincing people, we're talking about speaking to the action taker. So like, I think a lot of people realize, yeah, I'm going to speak to the action taker. And so what they're doing in their content is they are speaking to the action taker, the one who's already problem aware, they're looking for the solution. But unless they do the bit that you've just been talking about, you're not going to, you're selling what you're doing rather than selling you have to convey, and I'm obviously still working on this myself, but it's the being able to communicate why you, as opposed to any other mindset coach or whatever. So that's really powerful. What tips can you give the listeners to help them kind of make a little bit of progress on that?
Yeah, so one thing I know I've kind of touched on a little bit there, kind of reverse engineering what it is that you do for your clients, perhaps looking back at testimonials and really seeking the commonalities there, you know, really kind of trying to evaluate what underpins your client results, why they came to you in the first place, using that to inform your messaging. And the other piece of advice is also in relation to that, actually, to think about what your lens is. And the first time anybody asked me that question, I was like, well, I don't know, I'm knowledgeable. I know information, but that people don't buy information. They buy from you because of your insight. I really do believe that. And I've bought because of that as well. I've bought because I've seen a coach or a mentor who talked about something in a different way and they explained it and it made sense. I saw how that could create what I wanted to create. So I really do believe that getting clear, asking yourself that question, like, what is my lens on what it is that I do? Why am I different? What is my take on this common topic? And why does that help somebody to create a transformation a little bit faster with a little bit less pain? And really, really thinking about that and how you can use every piece of content actually to speak through that lens, because that really is what's going to get people actually then looking at you and not just the topic that you're talking about. So it's the difference between 3 ways that you can uh, reduce people pleasing, or 3 ways to stop procrastinating, let's say, versus, going into the why. This is what you need to do if you've been procrastinating, and then you can share your own methodology. And
Mm.
that's probably not going to be some really prescriptive, first of all, you do this, next you do that, but you're going to be diving into the why, and you're going to be showing them what that transformation looks like through your lens. And I think that's really powerful. But again, to get clear on what your lens is, I do think it's important to go back to understanding how you actually help your ideal client to get from A to B. So it's connecting all of those dots.
Yeah, amazing. What would you say to somebody who's like, right, okay, I feel like my audience know the things, but they're not moving? What would you say? Like, what moves somebody from thinking, yeah, I know I want to work with Anna one day. How do you get them to move? Because I'm really against, and this is a question for me actually. I love having a podcast because I have the most amazing conversations, and I know my listeners are benefiting, but I get the most amazing conversations. I get to be in them. So I'm going to ask this question, and hopefully it serves everybody else too. But how do you, because like you said, mentioned earlier about not using scarcity tactics to get people to buy, right? That would be a decision made from a place of lack. If they're like, oh, the only time I'm going to get to work with somebody is now, otherwise I'll just, rather than having those false scarcity tactics, what do you do to move somebody if your doors are always open? Maybe you've got like an evergreen program or something. How do you make people move?
Yeah, it's a really good question actually, and it is really relevant, I think, because I pretty much only run evergreen coaching containers, and a lot of my clients do as well. They do zero launching pretty
Mm.
much. with the exception of like a few mini offers and freebies to warm up their existing audience, but most of it is through evergreen offers. I really believe that it always comes back to three things. So if I am kind of diagnosing this with a client, it tends to be three things, three potential reasons why they're not moving. The first is whether you're actually speaking to the audience who wants the transformation, but also how you're talking about that transformation. And I see this one quite a lot. You know, a lot of people speak to things like more confidence or more freedom. It's not visual, you know, we aren't quantifying what that more looks like. So that if that can't be visualized by someone, they won't have much of an emotional attachment to it. And therefore, it
Mm.
doesn't really feel compelling for them to invest time, energy, money into getting more confidence, more freedom, etc. So that's the first thing. And that tends to be the one that I think a lot of people do have awareness of because they, you know, I think a lot of people, if you follow marketing experts, business experts, etc., they will say, okay, speak to what it is that they really desire, you know, and thinking about the kind of things that they wake up wishing they had and really speaking to those things. So making sure that the transformation you're actually talking about is compelling. It's what they really, really desire. The next thing is, well, again, one that I think a lot of people miss, but it's showing them how they can access that result. And again, this for me comes down to that really specific positioning. So it's actually calling out that person in our content so directly to say, you are doing this, you have already tried X, Y, and Z, and that didn't work for you, but it's because X, Y, and Z. And I think when we get so specific in our positioning, we help to see that we help that person to self-identify as
Mm.
somebody who could create that result. Because I think all of us probably have that, possibly you might call it inherent tendency, but you know, like if we're reading content, especially if it's about somebody creating a result, that we naturally go back to that space of, well, I don't think that would work for me. I'm not sure that would be right for me. So we need to show them that by, I really believe, getting to that space of really, really clear positioning, speaking to what they've already tried, speaking to exactly where they're at right now. And then also kind of, I suppose this is something that probably a lot of people do, contextualizing inside like client case studies, testimonials, and really speaking to where that person was at very, very specifically. And I think that will help that person to identify themselves. But the positioning piece is one that I think can be really big, actually, even if you take the testimonials aside for a second, because I do think that if you speak so directly to that person, then they will self-identify.
Mm.
And then the third thing is whether you are showing them why they should come to you. So that's the one that we've touched on already today. But again, you can talk about how they can solve their problems. You can talk about how they can achieve the transformation they desire. But if you're not adding your lens in there, if you're not saying, you know, here's how you're going to be able to do that with me, then you could actually get to a stage where somebody feels good about the fact that they could create this transformation, but they're just not seeing why they should do that with you. And
Mm.
that's a difficult one. And again, that's why it's so important to gain that clarity around, well, why do my clients hire me? Why have they got the best chance of creating the result they desire with me? And actually really getting to that very high level of understanding to be able to mirror that back and communicate it with conviction. So I think that actually is a tricky one. And for many reasons. And I think it does kind of go against the grain. I mean, talk about kind of feeling like you're bragging. That's what we're doing. You know, we are
Yeah.
saying, hey, this is why you've got the best chance of creating this result with me. That's not easy. So not only have you got to have the clarity, there's also a mindset piece behind that. So
Yeah.
those are the three reasons for me that generally are stopping people from moving and taking that next step.
Yeah, that I love that you just said that because it's so conditioned in us, isn't it? Growing up, like stop showing off or don't brag, or we're just conditioned to not shine, right? Really not show up and shine, because if we do, then we're too much or too showy offy, and that is a harmful limiting belief as a business owner when it's a very noisy place. there is no point. It doesn't matter if you are the best therapist in the world or the best coach, or you get the most incredible results. If you can't tell the world and no one knows about it, well, then you're not going to have a queue out your door, are you? So we really do need to unlearn that conditioning from society growing up, so that our subconscious feels safe for us to put the spotlight on, say, look, this is why I'm fucking amazing at what I'm doing. Come and work with me. Because if we're watering ourselves down and dimming ourselves, we're just going to be like stuck and not visible. Or you're like, oh yeah, that person gives a lot of how-tos, that person gives a lot of educational content, but they're not showing up as a leader because they don't fully trust themselves to stand out and tell me why I should work with them. So yeah, I absolutely love speaking with you, Anna, because everything that you say is so complemented by the subconscious and the inner work that you have to overcome in order to show up and have the powerful messaging that we need to have to be the go-to, to be that dream hire for your dream clients. So yeah, I love this conversation. Anna, do you think there's anything that you want to share that hasn't been shared yet? Anything left on your heart to say to our listeners?
Yeah, I suppose actually going off the back of what you just said, and when you do really think about how important it is to be on board with what it is that you're saying and trust in what it is that you're saying. And again, I really do see that as one of the reasons why people do struggle to show up in their content, their messaging, because they're thinking about what looks good at the end as opposed to actually bringing it back to what they know. And in a way, being able to communicate some of that objectively, I know that this is why my clients come to me. I know that my 10 years of experience helps me with this, looking at some of these things objectively. But I also, if a piece of advice that I think is quite a big one with this is seeing and knowing that just because something is normalized in an industry doesn't mean that you have to adopt it, doesn't mean that it's working, doesn't mean that it's something that you should be doing. And I think the two go hand in hand there. If something feels off, there's probably a reason for that. And, if we go back to this conversation of dream clients, if we know that we want to attract our dream clients, then every decision that we're going to make is probably going to be based around what's going to best serve this dream client, what offer is going to best serve them, what content is going to speak to them. And actually, it's really difficult at first. And I've been that person who just absorbs absolutely everything in the online space, bad scrolling habits. But actually, if you can take all of that with a pinch of salt and focus on your delivery first, focus on, okay, how can I get 1% better at serving my clients? How can I get 1% better at speaking directly to them? Really channeling into that person and not necessarily getting caught up with, but this person's just launched this style of program, this style of content, this thing's trending. So I really do think being able to recognize when things are normalized, whether it's actually because they're working or whether it's just because everybody else is doing it. And I think one of the most powerful things that you can do with all of this is to just tune back into some of those questions that we were talking about earlier to really clarify like what it is that you do and tune back into that inner truth and actually ask yourself those questions with every decision.
Yes, I love that so much. Don't be a sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah, go the other way when everyone else is doing something. Like, yeah, trust yourself. Don't follow, because that's an action from a place of lack again, isn't it? And lack moves get lack results. We want to tune in. We want to trust ourselves, even when it feels scary. Like our intuition, is never ever wrong. Even it doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to be logical. It doesn't need to be rational. Your human brain is probably going to be like, what? But trust it. And if you can't trust it in your business, start trusting it in your life with the low stakes things, right? If you think of a friend, message them. Your intuition is always there. But the reason, if you can't follow it, it's because your trust muscle isn't there with it. So you've got to build up that trust muscle. And you can get to a point, this is what I teach my clients, and this is what I embody fully. Like I literally lead everything in my business from a place of trusting my intuition. And sometimes that leads me to do things like yesterday, not posting during, like, I'm actually launching at the moment and I didn't put a post out on social media yesterday, but I embody success from a place of ease and flow and balance. So I'm not going to turn around and start pushing now, because that's out of integrity. Yes, that takes a lot of trust in myself. But the minute I decided that I wasn't going to post yesterday, because that would be doing so from a place of push and I'm not available for that. The minute I decided that, something like that, it dropped in for me to verbalize this and make a quick post in my notes about, this is why I'm not posting today. This has been a day in my life today. And I choose balance, I choose sustainability, I choose my family, I choose myself and my well-being first. And because I chose that, it dropped in this post, which is a leadership post, right? It's me showing that I'm in integrity and that you do not have to create your success from a place of absolute push and force. And there gets to be another way. But in order to create that, you have to, first of all, decondition from all the limiting beliefs that are making you show up from a place of absolute push. And you need to learn to trust your intuition to be able to follow that at every move. And then when we do those things, it gets to be so like liberating and spacious and amazing. So yeah, that's why I didn't post yesterday, but I'll be posting twice today because I finished that post this morning. Thank you so much, Anna. I've loved this conversation. Where can people find you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, so thank you as well. I could chat about this all day, so it's been a real pleasure talking to you. So I am mostly on Instagram, so it's annarumbold.co. And I also have my podcast as well, Attract. So if you do like listening to business and marketing, actionable tips, I always share there, but also guest interviews as well. So that's my Attract podcast.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anna. And yeah, I think this episode on Bigger Than You will be out before mine on yours. So go and listen to Attract, guys, and keep an eye out for our conversation over there. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining me. And see you all next week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into the Bigger Than You podcast. Don't forget to follow and subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode. And by the way, Bigger Than You wants to grow massively this year, and for that, I'm going to need your help. Everyone that shares today's episode will be entered into a draw to win a free place inside Powerhouse Portal, which is my 6-month signature mindset, energetics, and subconscious mentorship program, and is a 4-figure investment. All you need to do is share this episode to your stories on Instagram, tag me at I am Jenna Holloway, and share why you loved it. See you next week.